To this webinar on discussing sexuality with young people. My name is Evgenia Generalova and I'm Communications and Knowledge Manager for Child Protection Hub based in Budapest with Terra Zones. If you can hear me well, can you please let me know by writing in the chat box in the right bottom corner? Okay, wonderful. Good. Thank you very much. And before I give the floor to our speakers, Dr. Sylvia Jurko and Ms. Yvette Pieper, I would like to give you a very brief overview of the platform in case it's the first time you're using this Adobe platform. So as you realize, your microphones will be muted, so you cannot talk. But in case you have any comments or questions, please use the chat box. We will monitor it and make sure we answer all your comments or questions. Please pay attention to the polls. We will have a few polls and I will open one now. Here it is. Could you please take a second to answer it for us? Great. Thank you very much. We will have a few more polls coming, so please pay attention. Okay, I'm hiding this one now. In case you lose the sound sometime during the webinar, the first thing you should do is to check that your speaker icon is green. You can find it on the top black bar. There's microphone icon, speaker icon, sorry. And next to it, you can see an icon of a man with a raised hand. You can use it to communicate messages such as to ask us to speak louder or speed up or slow down to show you agree or disagree and things like that. Feel free to play with this function. And now I would like to give the floor to our speakers. It will take me a second to put up the presentation. And then Yvette, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Evgenia. Just a second, I'll also start my webcam so you can see. Good morning, everyone. You're very welcome today to join our webinar about discussing sexuality with young people. Thank you so much for having the time to...
Sorry, we cannot see you yet. I think you have to click more time.
Sharing,
to start.
Right. Just a second.
Yes, now we can see it. Thank you. Now it works.
Now it works? Okay, great. Well, good morning again. So happy to see you all. Also thank you so much for having taken the time to spend this morning a brief hour with us so we can share some of our ideas and practices and also learn how you deal with this. My name is Yvette Pieper and I'm a project leader at Stichting Alexander, which is a Dutch NGO specialized in youth participation and participatory action research. Now, as you can see on the first slide, I'll be presenting this webinar together with Sylvia Jurko from Terra Zones Europe in Hungary, and she'll take the second part of this presentation. We'll try to make the presentation a bit brief so that there's enough time to share ideas, to chat, to share best practices, tips, and what we've been doing. Now, the reason for having this webinar is it sort of derives from an international project called LEAP, which stands for Life Skills, Leadership and Limitless Potential. And it is all about supporting children and young people affected by sexual violence in Europe by strengthening and facilitating participatory practice. A very long title and quite important and challenging too. This is a project funded by the European Union. which is being done in 4 different countries, and we have some partners here. These countries are the UK, Bulgaria, Romania, and the Netherlands, and Terdesom, Hungary is also involved. Now, the whole aim of the project is to enhance the capacity of professionals and young people to really take young people seriously, to enhance their participation, and make sure that we really listen to young people, and specifically to young people who have encountered sexual violence or at risk. And this participation might take place within practice, within care situations, within research or policy making or prevention. It's quite broad. Now you all know, and so the project, we have 2 strands there. We facilitate a community of practice of professionals, and we work with groups of young people, youngsters, teenagers themselves, who become co-facilitators and create in a participatory manner products to address issues of sexuality. Now, Yevgenia explained to me that it's really nice to have some interaction, and so if you have questions, just put them on the chat. If you have ideas or suggestions, you're very welcome to put them on the chat, and we'll have some polls later on. If you want more in-depth information about the LEAP project, then of course we can share that with you after the this webinar as well. Now, what would we like to achieve in this webinar? Here you see some pictures, by the way, of the project taking shape in different countries. Now, I have a poll for you. I'd like to know, when was the last time that you spoke with a young person about sexuality? Maybe you can type something here. Aha, I see some answers coming up there. Quite diverse. And what we have really learned, yeah, let's see what's there. There's last week, some 5 days ago, previous month, never. Years back, when I was a teenager myself, something like that. Yesterday, never. Interesting. Previous month. What we have really learned, and I think this is one of the core lessons from the first year of the LEAP project, is that participation starts with the ability of people to talk to each other about issues which are important in their lives. You may close the poll if you like, Yevgenia. What we have really learned from young people participating in this project, and also from the professionals, is that an enabling factor for participation is our ability to discuss it. Now, as we all know, participation is a fundamental part of citizenship, and it's a process by which children and young people can influence decision making, which affect their lives to bring about positive change. But it's not just that. It's having an opinion and expressing it and being taken seriously, but it's also being able to construct an opinion freely through accessing information and meeting and debating with others. And it's really clear to a lot of professionals that before you can even talk about participation and influencing policy or influencing practice, that you need to be able to discuss sexuality properly. And then not only in a context of sexual violence or sexual risk, but also a general healthy sexual development. So that was the reason for hosting this webinar. Um, and it's in two parts. So we've also invited Sylvia, who's a very big expert on this issue and will tell you a bit later on much more about her practice, very experienced practice there. Now, so an enabling factor for participation is our ability to discuss it, sexuality with young people. In the LEAP project, we have an advisory group of young people, and this is a group we collaborate with Vier Friesland, which is a care institution, youth care institution, and the young people there, they have all been in contact with sexual violence. And our youth advisory group is a group of young people who are in closed care currently, and we've asked them for advice. So what should we do? As professionals, as human beings, as parents, as co-workers, as people who care, how should we address issues of sexuality with young people? We asked them, and so for the last part of my presentation, I'd like to share their suggestions with you. And before I do that, I'd really like to know what you think young people will say when asked what is important when discussing sexuality with them. So, Yevgenia, maybe you can open a box here so that people might fill in. Maybe you can write some keywords. What do you think that young people will say? You're very welcome to share some of your the first things which come to mind. Okay, more. Keep them going. Maybe you can type something else because it's quite interesting. It's nice to see. I can read, not make them to feel ashamed or guilty, to trust, to be honest, listen, know biology, please, to be treated as an adult, protection, trust, honesty, a safe environment, to talk about the technical contraception stuff, personal experience and real stories. Is there still someone with something on the tip of their tongue which they want to share? I think we have already, it's interesting. There's a lot here which I recognize, which we all recognize, obviously, from young people. Huh? A good relationship, practical, be as clear as possible. Let's see. No, come on, it's embarrassing. Do not make assumptions about them before you begin. Yeah. Um, well, I suggest I switch to what the young people have said, also looking at the time. And this was facilitated by Margriet and Ilona, who are here as well. You can see them in the chat. So if you have any questions relating to the outcome of these conversations, they can share how they did this and also share the results. Ilona translated the results into English because they were in Dutch. So here we go. Now, here's what young people find important. And we didn't give them these categories, but they sort of, from the conversations we had, we derived these categories. So very important, building a relationship. They said things about the essence of the conversation, about the setting, specific questions, and the desired outcome. Now let's switch to the first one. These are examples of what they said. In essence, I think summing it up, it has to do with we need to have a relationship. So just out of the blue with people you don't know or don't trust is quite difficult. So within this relationship, do have respect for me. Don't force me. Don't act as if you have more power. Don't assume. Don't put the blame on me. I think that that's the core, the heart of this relationship. And then they say, I need to trust the person. It's important to be available, to build a connection, be human, share some of your own experiences. And this makes me realize I'm not crazy. We are hearing this more and more from young people who are in care or who have difficulties in their lives, that when we want to help them with these difficulties or with any issue in their life, that we should be human as professionals and also as human beings, that we have to show something of our weakness ourselves, of our experiences ourselves, which really make the connection or the relationship less sort of sterile and less from the books, but much more from the heart. And that's what they um, um, value very much. And then they say the practical and technical things, oh, we'll work through that. That's fine, you know, but as long as the relationship is there, uh, um, we can build on that. Now, the other thing, something else which they said, is regarding the conversation itself. They realize that professionals struggle with these issues. Of course, they've grown up with professionals struggling with these issues. So they say, follow your own intuition, but do respect signals and boundaries. Tell me what you want to discuss and ask me what I need to feel comfortable in this conversation. It should not be tense or uncomfortable. Don't go too deep with your questions. Don't be too direct. This will really close me down. I'll stop talking. But at the same time, they also say, if I duck too often, so if I don't answer your question, but you still feel that something is up, you do need to confront me or hold up a mirror or challenge. But then obviously this is only possible when you have a trustworthy relationship. If I'm going too fast or too slow, let me know. Um, um, yeah, okay. Now regarding the setting, we know from experience and from what many young people have told us, they do not enjoy sitting in a white office with TL light and a computer on the desk. They find that intimidating. They find that impersonal. They say, please take me for a walk. Not make me look the other straight in the eye, because I might be embarrassed or ashamed. Let me do something creative, for example, draw, and then have a conversation. That's much easier and much more natural thing to do. Imagine if you yourself walk with friends in the park, then you have different conversations than when you sit opposite each other with an agenda on the table. And another suggestion from one of the young people was have these conversations in my space. Uh, um, um, so a place where I feel comfortable. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. I know that I'm not following them now, but Yevgenia will help me come back to them later on. Now, specific questions. Young people also gave us tips and advice what specific questions could be asked and not asked. And I think in essence they said, don't put the blame on me. Don't ask, why did you do this? Why didn't you just kick him out? Don't ask details too much, but do ask things which really help me understand better and go on. So questions like, do you know what you like sexually and what not? And how to deal with that? Can you address that? Can you discuss that? Did you ever go too far, and how did that make you feel? Do you dare say no, and how do you do that? And then questions which dive a bit deeper. So did something happen in the past? Or can you tell me what happened? And do you feel it like it's on your own fault, that you're to blame? So much more open questions without putting blame on them. Now, regarding the desired outcome, and I think this is also quite an eye-opener. Yes, they said things about from a conversation like this, we'd want to get closer to a solution, of course. But much more important is understanding, respect, support, interest, having someone listening to you, talking to you, taking you seriously. And also enhancing, I think this is really a wonderful thing to say for young people, that from a conversation like this, they would want to have their understanding enhanced about the situation and what role they themselves can play to change things. But also a clear explanation about possible follow-up or practical stuff. So it's not quite often when we think there's, as a professional, when we think there's a problem, we need to fix that problem, solve the problem for the young people. Here you see what they want from us is much broader. And they themselves want to be empowered to find the solution themselves. So this is so much linked to participation. Now they also, yeah, okay. So this is sort of what they came up with in this conversation, and it's quite a lot. I see a question about the method which we used. Now, Ilona and Margriet can share that in more detail. I don't know if Ilona or Margriet, one of you would like to explain, but I'm also looking at the clock. It's quite late already. So we can share the method later on. We can put it in writing, and it's not complicated. Well, so I suggest we do that. Now, for the last thing, what I would like to know before I hand the microphone over to Sylvia is write something that surprised you. Um, what stood out for you? I know it was a lot of information, but I'll be quiet now. No one is writing anything down yet. Do you have the screen there? Write something that surprised you. Okay. Yeah, yeah, okay. I'll just go through them, that they know professionals struggle with the conversation, not looking into the eyes, going for a walk. It didn't really surprise me, but the walking, that's a good suggestion. And then another one, a realization that young people realize that they're ducking some questions and they give permission to prod further. Yeah. Oh yeah, thank you for opening it up a bit. Yeah. Kids think so deep. It's amazing if they're about their answers. Exactly. When asked, they have such strong ideas, and they know what they need. Yeah. Okay. I suggest that we conclude this for now. Thank you so much for listening to this part of the webinar. And I'd like to hand over the stick to Sylvia, who will introduce herself. And she has very practical experience.
Okay, thank you, Yvette. Hello, everyone. Just I continue this presentation with a short story of a brand new foundation, so-called Hintalabon Foundation. We founded our organization last year, and we try to promote child rights and their well-being here in Hungary through child participation, education, and abuse prevention. And our main goal and our first project is about sexual education. Our concept is that sexuality is more than just sex. Sexuality is about emotions, body image, self-image, relationships, and love, of course. And was also part of our concept that children are active on online platforms in the 21st century. So if we want to reach them, we have to develop something on these platforms, on smartphones and on websites. Yvette mentioned that it's very important when we work together with children to hear their voices and to give floor to them. So this is why we know that sexual education is a very important part of child rights and child participation, because children have right to be informed about sexuality. However, sexuality is still a taboo in most families and schools in Europe. Parents feel uncomfortable when they are talking about the body and the sex and other kind of issues. However, teens try to find answers to their questions on the internet, and they usually find porn because more than the quarter of the internet is about pornography and is very explicit without any kind of explanation. So the porn may harm the teen's body image, the self-image, the sexual development, and the culture also. We also have some information and statistics how internet porn, how net porn can influence the sexual behavior of teens and how it influences our parent and the increasing number of sexual violence among the peers, among children. The poll is coming, so I would like to ask you to answer to this question. So what do you think, how many children suffer from sexual violence in Europe? Yeah, yeah. I'm so happy that no one mentioned that it's not a problem in Europe. And thank you, Yevgenia. I would like to save the time, so please close. Thank you. So yes, the right answer is every fifth children in Europe is affected by sexual violence, and we believe that good sexual education is one of the most important tools to prevent sexual violence against children. Because if teens can learn about more about their body, their self, their emotions, their relations, love, and sex, it may help them to prevent risky situations. These also want to consume explicit but safe sexual content. It means not porn, but explicit information that can explain how they kiss, for example, or what does sex really mean. They eagerly want to pose questions anonymously and getting clear, correct, age-appropriate answers in a matter-of-fact way. For parents and other responsible adults, it's important to gain support how to talk with kids about these issues and how to behave, communicate, and give support to the child in tricky situations. So this is why we invented two web pages. It's Janom.hu, it's Hungarian. There are two websites incorporated into one URL. One website is dedicated to kids between the age of 10 and 18, and there's another website dedicated to the responsible parents and adults who want to know more about sexuality, the body image, the self-image, and how they communicate with children in this field. There are also a help chat in this website because we know that giving information providing information for them is not enough. It's just a passive way. We have to keep this website interactive. We have to give the chance to the kids to answer, to pose questions, and then to get correct answers. Just shortly about the institutional background, how we work. So it is an NGO which use a child rights approach, meaning that child participation was real from the very beginning of this project, and also parent participation. It means that we work together with 5 kids between the age of 14 and 19. We asked them about all the issues that emerged during the development and the project preparation. We also had a professional team of psychologists, a body image educator, a health check trainer, Eva Kerpel, who was formerly the head of the Missing Children Europe organization. We also had a drama teacher who helped us to find a good language, how we can communicate with children. And we also have a mediator as a professional in our team. We also had to work together with an IT group. It was not easy, but finally we achieved, I think, a quite good website. And we also had volunteers. Yvette focused on her presentation, the child participation part. And now I would like to focus on the volunteers part. So how we work together with the staff who answer the question of the children on the Hub chat. I don't know why, but I can't go on. I'm not able to move on yet. Can you help me, please?
I just did. You don't see the slides changing? Sylvia, can you hear me?
Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Oh my God. I don't know what happened, but I can't move on. It's like...
Sylvie, you might want to log out and come back again. It might be some technical issue. It's okay, we can wait for you. It will take 10 seconds. Okay, I'm sorry, technology sometimes provides surprises, but Sylvie logged out and she will come back in a second, and I hope it will work now. But meanwhile, can you please write in the chat box if you can see slides changing right now? Because to me it works perfectly. It might be just Sylvie's issue. Yes, okay. Okay, good. So slides are changing. Sylvie, you are back.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know what happened.
It's okay, don't worry, it happens.
Okay, no. So I just have to keep in mind the time also. And okay, so Yvette focused on child participation, so I don't want to share too much information about how we work together with children in this project. Neither how we work together with our professional groups, but you can see in these pictures that it was a busy work. I would like to focus on working with volunteers, so the staff who answer to the question of the kids. We have on the Hub chat, and how we chose the staff, how we prepared them, how we built their skills and knowledge. But before dealing with the stuff, I would like to ask you, what do you think? What are the most important sources for a teenager in these days who are interested in sexuality? They ask parents, they ask peers, um, they pose questions to the teachers, or they are searching information on the internet and the website. Yes, absolutely. I see peers and internet is fighting, and that's true. According to the surveys, internet is one of the most important source for teenagers. So they are searching for information on the website, and sometimes they, or generally speaking, they are not able to make differences between true information and false information. They still want to ask parents and other family members for information, but they face that it's not comfortable for the parents to answer questions about sexuality, or sometimes they face that there is not a trusty environment at home, so they are just not able to question this field. Thank you, Evgenia, if you close the poll. So this is why we chose online solutions when we started working on the sexual education project. But there are so many pros and cons in this field. The most important pro that internet is very democratic. So because of the high internet penetration rate in Europe, this is maybe the best way how we can achieve most of the children, not just in the cities, but also in the countryside. In so many countries, they face the problem that the majority of the projects are located or situated in the capital or in the big cities. But if we are online, if we find an online solution, it is very democratic, and children have more chance to get information or to ask. Easy access is also an issue. According to the surveys of EU Kids Online, more than 60% of the European children under the age of 16 have smartphones, they have internet access, they can use laptops, so online solutions are easily available for them. Anonymity and intimate atmosphere we can create on a website is really important. They can ask without names, without nicknames even in our website. They can keep their anonymity. It's important for them to avoid, as Yvette mentioned, talking about sexuality, talking about body image, self-image, love, relationship can be intimidating, embarrassing for them. But posing questions on a chat or on a website, it's better than. This conversation, the chat conversation, is swift, is very fast. They can pose questions, they can get answers, and also the online platforms can be a familiar environment for them. It looks like other websites, it's trendy, kids are really trend sensitive, they are eagerly searching for new solutions, they are eagerly searching for technical initiatives. But there are some disadvantages if you are working on online platforms. The limited personality, so it's not a face-to-face connection. Yvette also mentioned that it's important for the kids not to ask a question in relation to sexuality just sitting in front of someone else. But there are also disadvantages of this limited personality when you can't touch the other person, when you can't just see the reaction. There are limits when you are just typing and seeing the words. It's very hard how you can communicate emotions, even if you can use emoticons and other kind of tools. Multitasking is really an issue because on the website there is Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter, and also other applications. So kids are multitasking. It's harder for us to keep them on the website and focusing on a conversation. So sometimes a conversation is swift because the child is focused, but sometimes the chat is really, really long because it's interrupted so many times. The kids just quit and then try to come back because something interesting happened on the Instagram or Snapchat. The high rate of cooking conversations is also a familiar phenomenon here. We call knocking conversation, where the kids just test us. So send or write something rude, something really graphic or explicit to test how we react, whether they can trust in us, whether we react appropriately. So it's a higher it's a longer way to build credibility and trust on the website. So back to the chat volunteers. There is it's a quite long, more than 2 months. It takes more than 2 months to select the chat volunteers. I mean the staff who answer the question of the children on the website. The selection process starts with a call, a very detailed call, when we just don't ask the applicants to send CVs or a motivational letter, but we provided an attitude and knowledge test, and we select. So this is the first and most rigorous part of the selecting process. More than the 50% or maybe 60% of the applicants just failed this first stage. After those applicants whose tests were good enough can read the child safeguarding policy of our foundation, our ethical code, and we ask them to send a CV and a short motivation letter. Then an interview is happening, conducted by the head of our chat program. That person is very prepared to find the strong points and the challenges of the applicant. After the interview, so who passed the interview, get an e-learning book. Is a special book with particular information about sexuality, communication with teenagers, how help chat or chat operating, how is our website, and how you can talk about these very sensitive issues. After learning this e-learning book, all the applicants have to take an e-learning exam, and who passed the exam can take part in a 3 days training. After the training, there is a 20-hour supervised chat with continuous supervision of the head of the chat program. So there's a skills and knowledge building process. It's a so-called selection, but we see it more as a knowledge building process, because through the e-learning, self-developed special knowledge is provided to the applicants. Through the training, we can build chat skills, we can teach them about trauma, the protocol, the abuse, how it works, how sexual education can prevent sexual violence. And through the monitored chat or a hospital chat, there's a chance for them to learn more about their personal skills. We also provide continuous support for the staff, meaning that supervision in group and individual supervision. Also, every 6 weeks there is a group meeting conducted by a psychologist who is very well in supervision. There are case discussions in every 4th week. It's in group, and there's a training, an additional training in particular issues 4 times a year. So this is how we select the staff, and it's very long and it's very important process, because we believe that we have to get the best person who answer to the question of the children, because it means a lot for them. I mean, sometimes a help chat or an online platform is the only chance for a child to ask about sexuality or body image, or this is the first time when they are talking about the sexual abuse, and it's very important how we react on them, how we can cope with the situation, how we manage the trauma, the abuse, or the emotional package of a story. Risk assessment is very important. At first sight, the strict and long selection process is part also the risk management, because it increases the commitment of the volunteers. It can build the skills step by step, and we also select and filter the risky volunteers. Risky means that we know that sexuality, or talking about sexuality, is really inviting. I mean, this narrative invites people who are pedophiliac, who feels bad intentions about children. So it's very important to select those people who want to get in contact with children, but from a bad intention. We also provide continuous support as part of risk management. These are general support for the whole volunteer group, and also needs-based support. So if someone faced a challenging situation in the chat, there's a chance to ask special support. We also take attention on preventing burnout, how we can improve the skills of the volunteers, and how we can help them being self-confident. Monitoring and supervision is very important, because the quality of the chat is the most important thing, how we can keep children on this website and how we can prevent them to search information on porn site, or just asking peers or other people who are not well prepared or trained enough. Sorry if I spoke too fast. I hope that the presentation was intact enough and convincing enough that it's a good project. I really believe that it's a good project. If you have any additional questions, something, please send us an email, or just send a chat here, or something, just send a message. And thank you for the attention, and I give the floor to Yevgenia.
Thank you very much, Sylvie. It sounds like a very interesting project, and thank you very much, Yvette, for your wonderful presentation. Very interesting indeed, and I can see people are commenting that it was very interesting. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat. Meanwhile, I would like to take the opportunity and to remind that you can request a certificate of attendance of this webinar by writing us a quick email on this email address that I just put into the chat box. And also, we will be happy to see you in our future webinars. You can always check them here at this link. The next one is going to be next week, Friday, on prevention and reduction of delinquent behavior of children and adolescents from risk groups. I think it's a very interesting topic, and we will be happy if you join us. We will keep the webinar room open for a bit of more time now, so feel free to use the chat box, and I wish you all a nice day. Thank you very much.